Ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome to the channel. I'm Stalos and I'm joined by the wonderful...
One amongst many, yes. Hello, it's me, Josh. Hi.
Hello, Josh. And we've got something that we're going to talk about today, and this is the Overwatch 2 progression and talent system and how this is just going to work, because we don't have much details on this, but what I want to do is kind of just discuss the way Blizzard could approach this, because I think when we look at the developers that are involved in Overwatch 2, obviously they worked on World of Warcraft, you've got Diablo as well, and all those kind of systems. And yeah, we're just going to hash this out and discuss. And Josh, he likes World of Warcraft, Josh does, so he's going to give us some beautiful insight into the way the progression works in WoW specifically, I think.
Well, we've been just drifting towards Shadowlands at the moment, as like Shadowlands has come out. Sty and I are playing on a very populated server, so we haven't been able to play it too much at the moment. But you can very much see that they have incorporated and engulfed sort of Diablo's lessons and like the good strengths of Diablo. They've started putting into WoW more and more and more. So if you aren't familiar, World of Warcraft has been running the system called the Mythic system for a long time, which is adding mutators on top of regular content. So you basically get keywords that get put onto instances that you run your dungeons, and they have all these little keywords that change how things work, and it keeps things fresh, it keeps things a little bit more challenging, and the more keywords you slap on, of course, the better rewards you get. And it's a nice way to keep things fresh as it goes. And people who play Diablo will be familiar with this. This is a kind of system that's been popping up all over the place, and it even popped up in the workshop a little bit in Overwatch. So they're clearly looking at this idea.
Think about the Junkenstein's Revenge, the last event. That had modifiers on various things would spawn, like riptides would spawn randomly out of mobs when you killed them and all this kind of stuff. So you can see that they're sort of going down that path with these modifiers to sort of keep the same content replayable in a way. Well, we're going to start the video off with this, and there's 3 systems that we know of. Well, there's 2, and then there's like a 3rd system, which isn't really explained in any detail. But the first system is action-packed story missions. Now, as far as we know, this is exactly what I played back at BlizzCon last year. This was the Rio de Janeiro mission, which did have a talent system in it, although none of this was final. Now, that mission, it had different difficulty settings. So you had like your easy, or your normal, your like slightly less normal mode, and then you had the expert mode, I think it was called, or legendary. And we played through all of those modes. Now, granted, I was playing with some really good players at the time, and it wasn't like, you know, I guess the average player might have a bit more difficulty with the harder sort of legendary setting of that mode. But it didn't really take much time, Josh, to finish that. Like within an hour, we kind of had done that, and it was like, okay, what do we do now? Now, what they had is a talent system where you could change the way your hero worked in that mission. It wasn't tied to your account, not in that build of the game. So this is where I'm getting a little bit worried with replayability of these story missions based off what we know. Is that, okay, great, it's cool to run through the Rio mission. And obviously everyone does it on normal to begin with, get to grips with it, you know, see what's going on. Then you do it on the harder difficulty settings, and then eventually you beat it. Then what? Like, why would you keep running this over and over again? Where is the hook there to keep people interested?
I think Blizzard have taken cues from certain other games that have released at the moment, like Hades, for example. So just to sort of reflect with Shadowlands, they've introduced this new system called Torghast, which is very much like a roguelike game, where you go in there and you get different abilities as you go through the dungeon, and it changes how you play each time. And I imagine that some of this is like going to come through the talents, where, oh, this time let me try and like focus on these talents, or see how these talents work, maybe try a different build out, see how that goes. But I can also see them doing something similar, because it's a very fun system to go through and get given a couple of options and go, okay, maybe on this run I want to try out a Lucio boop build, where I can boop things into orbit and launch them off the map every opportunity I get, and just launch them into the air and stun them and do all this crazy stuff with the boop. And then the next run, I'm going to do a Lucio speed boost build, which gives everyone massive buffs when I use speed boost. Stuff like that, where they can add in even more sort of replayability by making the runs a little bit different every single time. And I think that will add a lot of value as people, you know, run through it once, twice, and it gives you an incentive to go, man, I want to try out this build and see if I can get this build working. Man, I really want to see if I can use this ability and see how far we can push that. And with the talents combined, you could probably do some really funky things if they implement that system, and I hope they do, because it's really fun.
Yeah, well, I hope they do that. I hope that they learn from Hades, because that is an incredible game. But so from what I remember, the May talents that were available in the BlizzCon build, they didn't really work like that. You could see what their design philosophy at that moment in time was very much like, this is the talent build for the normal difficulty. This is the talent build for the more difficult modes. So May, she could, like, you only had access to the first tier talents as well of that build. May basically could go into Ice Block, and when she came out of Ice Block, it would freeze everything around her. So this was like an extra crowd control ability that she had. Instead of she had like an AoE damage effect basically on when she froze targets and shot them. They sort of exploded and did damage, blah, blah, blah. But you could clearly see one was a damage talent, one was a crowd control talent. And in the more difficult modes, because I played quite a bit of May at BlizzCon, the damage May was no good. Like, you needed the extra May freeze because you're coming in and you needed to freeze the I forget the name of the robot. It's like a massive artillery robot, but you had to freeze it because it would like one-shot people when it hit them. So you needed that extra freeze. So I'm just a little bit worried that we end up with, like, I guess, like, to use a WoW example, like really early WoW talent systems where it was like, this is your talent tree and everybody's is the same. And there isn't really, I guess, space to sort of move around and make it fun. But I do hope, like you said, that we do get a case of, yeah, it is very dynamic and it lets us replay the missions over and over again. Because I think the other issue is, these missions are probably going to take a long time to make. We know what Blizzard are like. We know that they're going to look great. The story will probably be pretty good. But we also know they're not exactly fast at making this stuff. So unless they're going to hit us with, like, I mean, hell, a new mission every month, which I just cannot see happening, then they need to really work on these systems, don't they, to make it just replayable.
Well, yeah, talking like on missions as a whole, they need to make sure that there's also like I like what you said at the start almost, which is like, yeah, there's like a story mode and you go and you do the story runs. And I kind of hope that after you've done the story runs, there's like a non-story run option, if that makes sense, where you play the story mode one, you get all the cutscenes, you get to see all the story, you get all the lore, you get all the sort of the dialogue and all that kind of stuff. And then you transfer into, you can replay that as much as you like, sure, but then you also have a mode that's just do the run. Because I'm pretty sure after the first 3 times you've run it, you probably don't want to watch a cutscene of people
who watches the Junkenstein cutscene.
Yeah, everyone
you know
just
what I mean? Yeah,
smashes skip instantly. And
yeah, well, Warcraft's like this, isn't it, at the moment? Yeah. Where you go through the campaign and the expansion, but your other characters, you can just level normally, can't you? You don't have to go through the story, which, yeah, is good. So I'm hoping that they learn from all of this. And it'd be crazy if they didn't, because it's the same company at the end of the day. All right, we're going to move on to the next thing, because I think this is this is going to be funky. Okay, so this is replayable hero missions. Now, this was the thing where everyone was like, what? Because what they're doing here, and this is where Jeff actually did compare this to Diablo, this is essentially missions that are random in nature that appear on maps throughout the Overwatch world. And if you watch the Overwatch 2 gameplay trailer, you will see a section inside Gibraltar where it shows you a map, and you've got like the various members of Overwatch around the map, and that map is like the I forget what they call them. They're like what are they called? They're like crisis points, or like there's like something happening there that Overwatch needs to go and react to. And I think that's what's going to happen. So we'll get a big map which is like, right, there's a crisis happening in King's Row, and there's one happening in, I don't know, maybe Dorado. And you click on that, and it's a random mission. Very similar to the World of Warcraft dailies in a way, how they're random dailies and all of that stuff. Where you go to the mission, and it will maybe be kill 200 Omnics or whatever, right? Or protect this VIP. And you do that, and then you get a reward. But the question is, what is going to make us as players keep playing through that again? Like, my issue with all of this, Josh, is, yeah, fine, make it replayable, have all of the different effects that the monsters can have and all of that stuff. But don't we need some sort of like progression system that's linked to the characters that we play? But can that even work in Overwatch? Because like this is where I get really confused.
Yeah, it's like, what's the hook? What makes you want to play it a long time? And like to compare it against games that are similar, like Vermintide 2 is a great example, because it is a PvE-oriented team-based game where you play 4 characters. It works a lot like Left 4 Dead, if you've played that. And you go through these missions, and hey, you've got to like level your characters, and you get levels and drops and gear. And that is the sort of long-term progression hook. That's what makes it worthwhile for you to go, oh man, I really want to do this run and pick up these extra challenging things as we do the run as well. So I get more experience, I get more gear, I get better loot at the end of it, and get more upgrades for my character. We've had no word, I think, on like there is loot in the game, but it's like short-term drops, isn't it? It's like it's only part of that mission. You only get that upgrade for the drops for that mission.
I mean,
So,
the issue we've got is we're working off information from a year ago, so this might have changed now. But that's that's Blizzard's issue. They haven't given us any information. But yeah, the way the drop system worked is if you got like the Torbjorn turret, for example, at the start of the game, then when you got through to the next phase, the next checkpoint, there'd be more loot, but it would just be Torbjorn turret point 2. It wasn't really like anything radically different. So you were just basically leveling up the ability. So it wasn't really as crazy. It's like, oh my god, this is a completely radical ability I've got here, which is going to completely change whatever's going on. But I just want to read you this, Josh, because this is from the official website on what they say about replayable hero missions. So the battle continues with hero missions as escalating crises break out all over the world. Encounter an ever-changing array of scenarios with a range of diverse and dangerous enemies. Level up your favorite heroes and earn powerful customization options to help you beat the odds. It's that last line, isn't it? I mean, it's very vague. Level up your favorite heroes and earn powerful customization options. Well, we know that's probably the talent system. Yeah. But, like, if it doesn't persist through the missions, then what? Like, this is again, when I come back to this issue I've got with, like, are people... Like, you want to see your character progress, right? So let's say you're a Tracer player. You want your Tracer to level up, don't you? And because it's PvE... we can completely ignore PvP. So things like balance can just go completely out the window. So how do they make that Tracer level up? What do they give you to keep you playing on that Tracer? Is your Tracer changing in appearance? Is she getting like additional ability? Like, I don't know. Like what? How do you see that manifesting?
Yeah, I definitely see it. Maybe it's like an extension of the talent tree. Maybe it's probably going to also be some cosmetics. I imagine they're going to have to add some extra cosmetics of like reach level 50 on Tracer. And that you could even probably take into the multiplayer and get these extra cosmetics that you earn through doing the PvE on high difficulty, stuff like that. Also give you player icons, all that normal stuff that they kind of give away at seasonal events. But the long-term progression has got to come through. Yeah, it's like you said, meaningful power upgrades, I think, is what we're kind of circling around, right? The idea of getting these powerful end-game talents that could be really game-defining and really, really sort of shake up how you play the missions and stuff like that. But then is it a case of, like, do you have to grind to then get those to then do the high-end stuff? Is that really worth it? It's going to be interesting to see how they solve this problem of, like, how do you make players want to keep playing a PvE experience over and over and over again? And they've definitely done it before. I mean, they've got WoW, they've got Diablo, but those run on, like, what people will call a Skinner box. You do a thing, you get a reward. And the reward is, like, a long-term power gain for your character. You get a new set of shoulder pads for your character in WoW, or you get a new legendary item in Diablo. Can they match that in Overwatch 2? I kind of hope so, and we should have had this news by now, so you can't poo-poo us as well, because like BlizzCon should have happened by now. We should have had more info on Overwatch 2. It's coming soon, though, real soon.
All right, then. We're going to move on to the final bit of PvE kind of progression stuff, which is probably going to happen. So they list this on the website as new factions arise, and they say, it's up to you and your friends to stop Null Sector, the elite forces of Talon, and other enemies of Overwatch from carrying out their plans. Each enemy faction features a unique mix of units with their own strategies and strengths, challenging you to adapt your approach every time you play. Now, this is me adapting this in my head to say, give us raids, Blizzard. Because when I was at BlizzCon and I watched the opening ceremony and it was the massive Omnic mech destroying Paris, I'm like, oh my god. The mission is going to be destroy this massive mech. It's going to be like a raid. It's going to be insane. And then it was some random Rio mission. It had nothing to do with the thing. And I'm like, so I was a little bit disappointed. I mean, that comes back to setting expectations. But yeah, like, surely we need endgame. That's the question I want to put forward here. What is the endgame? Because you're not just going to keep running these missions over and over again. Surely there needs to be some sort of... Look at Destiny. I like Destiny as an example where, yeah, Destiny has raids. Obviously, it has all the other content as well. But the Destiny raids are like super complicated and they take a long time to beat a lot of the time. Could we see that in Overwatch where we just get like some, maybe it's like World of Warcraft as well, where you have the patch system. So there'll be a raid, and then when the next big patch comes out, maybe it's like the next big battle pass in Overwatch 2's case. There's a raid. So do you think that would work?
What I suspect those factions are about is those random missions. And you're just going to get a random mission and it's Talon attacking, and so you're going to get the Talon enemy set. And if it's Null Sector attacking, then you get the Null Sector enemy set. And if it's whoever attacking, you're going to get the whoever enemy set. So that might be what they're alluding to with those factions, but I do hope that there is some kind of big boss encounter, and definitely like tying it into story events. Like we're getting these mini events now pretty regularly, where it's like, we've got the Symmetra one that's just wrapping up fairly soon, and it would be a great way to tie those into something actually meaningful if we had a raid where, I know this doesn't flow with the story, but you have to hold off Vishgar forces from an Omnic temple, for example, right? Where you could have stuff happening where you can make this work and make sort of stuff like that work. The issue I can see is, how do you scale up to players? And I don't think they're going to scale it up past 4 players. But I mean, Destiny kind of makes that work. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Destiny raids work with like 6 players or something max. So they're not huge. Like, you don't need a huge number of players to have these tight, mechanically intensive encounters. And then you can even just easily scale that difficulty, I imagine, as well, and give people something to strive for, and give people something, if you just want to play a easy game with a couple of friends and have a good time doing it, you can probably have that option available too.
Yeah, the thing that worries me is Destiny, it gets extremely complicated for their raids. And I'm worried that if something was that intense in Overwatch 2, maybe it doesn't sit well with them. I don't know. Like, the thing for me, I guess, with all this stuff is Overwatch 2, like, we'll be able to, this is honestly what I imagine is going on, like, at Blizzard, and why they decided to go for this as Overwatch 2. The heavy PvE focus being, look, you will be able to play this game purely in PvE and completely ignore PvP. The issue I've got is, we know that PvP is pretty much different every time you play it. I know there can be phases of metas which just last for way too long and all of that stuff, but it's different every game, isn't it? You might be on a different map, you got different teammates, you're against different heroes and all of that stuff. But with PvE, are they going to be able to do that to keep people constantly playing? Because we know what modern game design is like these days. It's about keeping you logged in and keeping you engaged in the game. And I think Overwatch has got an issue where people just... I mean, hell, when was the last time you played Overwatch, Josh? Like, I could ask myself that question as well.
I did a little bit with the new Symmetra event. I logged in to check that out and do some stuff with that. But that's about the last time I played Overwatch, yeah.
Yeah, but the point I'm trying to make is, you're not sitting down and going for like a 3-hour session of Overwatch. You're playing it for 20 minutes or something like that, I guess at a push. Like for me with the Symmetra thing, I still haven't finished that challenge, but I will go in and I'll just do like 2 arcade games and then come off. But then compare that to World of Warcraft, right? You're going to be logged in for a long time on that because it's got systems built in to keep you there. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but I think we're going to see, or should we see that stuff in Overwatch 2 to keep you invested into it. And I guess the last thing as well is, do you think we'll see PvE esports like the Mythic Dungeon Invitational? Do you think we'll see that?
I hope so, but I hope that it's complicated enough to justify having that, because that is a really fun thing to watch if you haven't watched it before, where they do the sort of speedrun instances against each other. It's such a fun thing to watch. It's really exciting, actually. And it would be cool if they can get it to that level of complexity and difficulty where that's actually meaningful. Because the one thing that's scary about PvE content as well is that it's very solvable. Once you hit a certain point and everyone's figured everything out, it gets solved and people just sort of go through the motions, and there you go.
This is what I'm worried about, Josh. That's a good point. Like me, when I sit down and think, okay, what videos will I make on Overwatch 2? I'm really worried that it's just like, right, these are all the guides on the missions. That's it. Goodbye. Because you can just download the mission literally in after a few runs, it's all over, and then I'm like, okay, well, what do we do now, sort of thing, and I am worried about that.
In quick closing from me, Shadowlands has given me a little bit more faith in Blizzard. They've got a lot of systems going on, especially with the Torghast system, which seems to borrow heavily from Hades and things like that, and roguelike design, where someone in Blizzard has clearly got a good idea in the head of how to keep something a bit fresh for a while. When it's not going to last forever, it's not going to last years and years and years as good PvE content, but it will keep things fresh for a lot longer because you have these little situational changes that you can make. And I hope that they take that insight and take that information and put it into Overwatch 2 and make something that lasts, longer than, oh, we understand this mission now, run here, shoot this, and that's the mission done.
All right, guys, thank you for listening in on the video. If you've got any thoughts on this, do leave a comment below, especially on how you think progression is going to work in Overwatch 2. And Josh, where can they find you?
They can find me at twitch.tv/oneamongstmany.tv, streaming every day except for Tuesdays and Wednesdays at 7 o'clock. Other than that, Twitter as well. Just look up One Amongst Many, you'll find me.
Awesome. All right, guys, we'll catch you on the next one. Toodaloo.
Bye.